Hey everybody, welcome to the Work with Purpose podcast. This month, we're talking all about understanding your personal work values. That episode is up next. Hey everybody, welcome to the Work with Purpose podcast. I'm Randy Mahoney Jr. and I'm excited that you are joining us today. So if you're new to our program, new episodes of our show come out on the first Friday of every month. Also, we'll put out pod update or podcast update episodes. Those are episodes that come out at different times, such as when we're going on a break, when our season's ending, or just updating for the next season, since we are a seasonal career podcast. So just take note of that as you're listening to us. Also, we publish application guides to help you apply what you learn. We do that with every episode of our show, so be sure to look for the link for that in our show notes for that as well. Also, if you're listening to us, I would just invite you, please subscribe wherever you are listening to us. Consider leaving a review and a rating for us on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. When you do that, it helps other people know about our show. It brings new listeners to us, and it helps kind of get the word out of all the good we're trying to do. So thanks so much in advance for doing that. As a reminder to you, in last month's episode, we started to unpack the theme of this season, which is Essentials for the Journey. We're talking about all of the core things that I think you need to know to work as your best self in the best possible way. And last month, we dug deep into what it means to work with purpose. Before we get into our topic for today, I want to encourage you, if you haven't listened to that episode before this one, talking about working with purpose, I invite you to just pause and come back to this one after you listen to last month's episode, because I think once you listen to the Work with Purpose episode, it'll help you understand a little bit more and give you a good frame of reference as I start talking about in detail about what work values are and things like that. Now, if you want to listen to that episode about working with purpose, I'll put a link for that in our application guide for this episode, so you can go find that and you can listen to it for yourself. All right, so as we start on this month's episode talking about understanding work values, I want to start out with our big idea, and what that is, that's kind of the 1 or 2 sentence takeaway that I want you to get from this episode. And here it is, that when it comes to understanding work values, there's wisdom in working in line with your work values. I'll repeat that to you again. When it comes to working in line with your work values, there's wisdom in working in line with your work values. So now let's start to define work values and talk about what work values are a little bit more. So when we say work values, we mean those important personal characteristics that you express in your job, or those things that are important to you. Also, when it comes to work values, I think as we go into this conversation, I think it's important that we get a baseline for what we're talking about, get a common language. And what I want to talk with you when it comes to work values are the 6 universal work values. I think they'll give you a good frame of reference, and we can kind of be on the same brain wave with that. And the 6 universal work values, these come from the ONET online website, and it's a popular website for career information. And if you want to check out this website for yourself, I'll make sure that I put a link for that in the show notes for this episode, so you can check that out on your own. But let's go through the 6 work values right now. So value number 1 of the ONET online work values is achievement. And what that means is that you might be a person who likes to have a feeling of accomplishment when it comes to your job. And also, if you're a person who values achievement highly as a work value, you might value the idea of being able to use your strongest skills and your strongest abilities in your jobs. That's the value of achievement. And value number 2 is independence. And what that means is that if this is a high work value for you, you value the ability to make your own decisions, or you might like the ability to work on your own, set your own schedule, be trusted by your manager and your leadership to do your job responsibilities. So we talked about achievement. We've talked about independence. Number 3 on the work value list is recognition. And what that means is that if this is a high work value for you, you like being recognized for a job well done. You also might prefer jobs or companies to work for where there's a clear path for advancement, for taking on more responsibility, being open to leadership opportunities, and things like that. Value number 4 is relationships. And what that work value means is that if this is a value that's important to you, you like being able to help others or serve other people in your job. That's very important to you. So groups of jobs that might fit with this work value of relationships would be, any kind of healthcare worker like doctors, nurses, EMT, paramedic, and things like that. Also, for the relationships work value, you might be a person who values your relationships with your coworkers. That's a critical thing for you if relationships is a high work value. All right, so far we've talked about the work value of achievement, independence, recognition, relationships, and now we're at value number 5, which is support. Now, with this work value, what we're talking about is that if this is a high work value for you, you are a person who values your manager and your supervisor a lot in your work, and it's important for you to know as an employee that your manager or those who are in leadership above you, that they have your back, that you feel supported and you feel valued as an employee. And then the 6th and last work value that we'll talk about today is working conditions. And now when we're talking about this work value, what we mean is that if this is a high work value for you, it might be important for you to have things like a steady employment throughout the year. You might be very focused on making sure that your pay or your compensation is similar between yourself and other coworkers in your organization. Some groups of jobs that might be a good fit for this work value would be jobs that have a union tied in with them. So think about jobs that are in the building trades, like being an electrician, being a plumber, being an educator or a teacher. All right, and so really quickly, let's summarize those work values. The 6 that we're talking about today. Number 1 was achievement. Number 2 was independence. Number 3 was recognition. Number 4 was relationships. Number 5 was support. And number 6 was working conditions. All right, so now that we've talked about work values a little bit more, we've gotten a common language on them, and we've gotten just some details about what each work value is. I wanted to talk to you about now just some recent research and information into work values to help you see how important those are as you make career decisions and think about your overall career path and job satisfaction as well. So according to a 2017 study from the Society of Human Resource Management, or SHRM as it's sometimes called, they surveyed over 600 different employers from various industries, and their survey, they reported over 80% of the employees that they surveyed, they were satisfied with their current job in some capacity, some more than others, but over 80% of those they studied. And so here are some interesting insights from their study that they found out. From those employees that they surveyed, they found that job satisfaction was high for a number of different factors. And here are a couple of those factors in order. At number 1 was respectful treatment for all employees at all levels. Number 2 was how much each employee was paid. Number 3 was having that trust between employees and their management and leaders. Number 4 was having job security. And then number 5 was having opportunities to use their top skills and abilities in your work. So what I hope that you're starting to hear and understand is that from this research and everything we're talking about with work values, I hope you're starting to see that work values, it's not something that's just made up out there in the ether, but I hope you're starting to see that we have a survey here of 600 different employees who are saying, hey, all these different work values, they matter to me in my satisfaction in my job. And I hope that you're starting to see that too, that your work values matter and that they show themselves in your job that you have now in the company that you work for now. And that you also see that you knowing your work values can be a helpful guide for you as you continue to desire to work better in your current job, or be a good guide for you as you decide to change your job or change companies in the future. All right, so after the break, we'll take some time to apply a lot of what I've been teaching you about in this episode, and we'll also finish up by going through our application questions. So stick around. You're listening to the Work with Purpose podcast, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, Randy here. I'm taking a short break from this episode to give you an opportunity to check out a specific resource that I made just for you, all to help you understand your unique work values and to help you take an intentional step on your career journey. It's called the Occupation Card Sort, and it's a 16-minute career tutorial video that I made just for you. I think you'll find it useful, and it'll help you apply everything that you're learning about in this episode of the podcast. This tutorial covers the 6 major work values, and it'll help you get clear about what's important to you as you consider the company you work for, a new job, and different things like that. Now, I'm selling this tutorial video for $19.99. That's a steal of a price for the value you're getting from it. You can purchase this career tutorial from my website, wwpcast.com/shop. Again, that's wwpcast.com/shop. Oh, and one more thing. Remember, every donation helps to fund future seasons of the Work with Purpose podcast. So be assured, your giving is going to a great cause. Now, let's get back to the show. All right, so welcome back to the Work with Purpose podcast. We're talking all about understanding your personal work values this month. We've talked so far about what are work values. We've gotten a common language about them. We've showed you some research to kind of help you understand work values and how they can be connected to your job satisfaction. And so now where I'd like to go is what's kind of the so what section of this episode. Now that we've learned about work values, gotten a common language, now what are kind of a 3-step framework that you can use to help you apply this information? And so I'll kind of go through those really quickly. So I would tell you that to kind of act on this information, there are really 3 steps. The first step is to assess your work values. Second step is to reflect on your work values. And the third step is to consider adjusting your work values. So let's start with step number 1. So assessing your work values, what I mean is that really getting clear on what your work values are. So going back to those 6 universal work values that we talked about at the start of the show. And getting clear on those can be really, really helpful because once you get clear on your work values, then you're better able to take more focused action to work in line with your work values. I'll say that one more time. That might be kind of confusing. That once you get clear on your work values, then you can better take focused action to work in line with your work values. But it starts with getting clear. I found a couple of focused actions that kind of go in line with this point. It comes from a great article from the Harvard Business Review, from an article called How to Tell If Your Prospective Employer Shares Your Values. I'll give you some of the highlights here, but if you want to read this article for yourself, I'll put a link for it in our application guide so you can check that out. And here's kind of a short step-by-step thing that they say can help somebody find out if a company or a manager is in line with your values. And they say, first, like I just talked with you about, it's important for you as an individual to get clear, to identify what your work values are, what your core values are. And second, they also said that once you get clear on your work values, that can help you ask better focused questions during your job interview process. And then third, they say that it's important for you as an individual to kind of do your own assessment and see if your personal work values match the organization you are working for or that you do want to work for. So that's step 1 of how to apply everything we're talking about in this episode. You want to assess or get clear on your work values. And step number 2 is being able to pause and reflect on your work values. And as we got to this point, I wanted to put out a question to you and get you thinking about it. And here is that question. Is my current role or job allowing me to express my work values? I'll say that again. Is my current role or job allowing me to express my work values? I want you to answer that for yourself, maybe in the coming weeks after you listen to this episode. And I think that's important for you. And I wanted to pose that question to you as a listener, really thinking about somebody who might be having a hard time in their job right now. They might be kind of strolling along and they're frustrated and they're maybe not sure why. Because I think it's important for that time of reflection because you can really think about what's been going positively in my current job, what's been going negatively, what's been frustrating me. And you can kind of, as you engage with this process of learning about work values and really trying to get clear on that for yourself, chances are that as you ask a question like the one that I posed to you, you might find that maybe some of your work values are not in alignment with your current role, and you might need to take some helpful steps to remedy that situation. All right, so far we've talked about it's important as applying this information. We've talked about it's important to assess or get clear on your work values, pause and reflect on your work values. And now for the third and final step, it's important to consider adjusting your work values. Consider adjusting your work values. Here's what I mean by this. I want to give you a couple examples of how you as an individual could consider, if you're in a job that you're having a hard time with right now, what are some focused actions that you could try in the next few weeks to help you remedy your job situation? If you're struggling and you're finding that your personal work values are not being expressed a lot in your work. Let's say in the next few weeks, you choose to talk with your supervisor to try to, remedy this situation and work more in line with your work values. Some ideas you could choose to talk with your supervisor about could be, is there a new project that you could take on in the next few weeks where you could maybe practice a new skill or work to express more of one of your top work values to kind of get some of that, kind of charged up energy and get you expressing some of your work values in your job. Also, if you're somebody who values being at home with your family or, date nights with your spouse and things like that, you might choose to talk with your supervisor and seeing if you can adjust your schedule to be able to allow you to be at home a little bit more and kind of be in line with your work value that way. Something that you could also do is that maybe you choose to talk with your supervisor and review your compensation, your pay, maybe the possibility of a raise or a bonus. And now here's what I mean by this. I don't mean that you storm into your boss's office and you choose to ask, for a raise. Hey, I deserve a raise. Why am I not paid anymore? Anything like that. No. I'm not telling you to do that. What I'm saying here is that in order to be more in line with your work values, you might choose to have a talk with your manager or your supervisor and find out what steps do you need to take as an employee to be in a better situation to possibly, be paid a little bit more, possibility of a raise and things like that. So you're going in to find out information about, does my job performance need to be better? Do I need to hit, more sales? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And you're doing that in a polite, a grateful, and a respectful way to your boss or leader. So again, those 3 steps to kind of help you apply all that we've been talking about when it comes to work values. Number 1 is assess or get clear on your work values. Number 2, you want to pause and reflect on your work values. And then number 3, you want to consider adjusting your work values. So now that we've talked about those, let's move on to maybe my favorite section of our episodes, which is our application questions. Okay, so now we're to our application questions. Just a quick reminder before we get into those that you can find these application questions on our website at wwpcast.com. There is a link there where you can find the application guides for our episodes, and you can get that there. We've got 3 application questions this month, so we'll go through them really quickly as we kind of wrap up this month's episode. The first question that I want to get you thinking on between after you listen to this episode and the weeks between now and our next episode is this. Here's number 1. Of the 6 work values I mentioned in this episode, those 6 universal work values, how would you rank them in order from 1 to 6, with number 1 being the most important value? What I'm hoping that you do in this question is it's getting you thinking about what are your personal work values and how would you put them in order? How important is each work value to you? I think that's critical for you to kind of tackle and start to get clear on what your work values are. So that's question 1. All right, moving right along. So question 2 is, what is one clear, focused action you want to take from listening to this episode? Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I would say I'm a pretty goal-oriented person. And sometimes the place where I can get in my life is that I have a lot of goals happening. And the older that I get, and really the more mature that I get, I'm finding that I'm often more successful in my goals if I have 1 to 2 or 3 goals that I can kind of focus on and be diligent with them and kind of see them to completion rather than trying to do 15 things at once and hoping that something gets done. So that's so for this question, that's why I tried to get you to narrow down from everything that we've talked about in this episode. What's your one clear, focused action that you want to try to work on between now and our next episode? And then finally, question 3, it says this. So for that clear, focused action that you mentioned in question 2, I want to know, what's your deadline for it? When will you have it finished? Something else too, personally, just when I do different goals, part of what I need to have to be successful is that I need a deadline. I need a line in the sand. I need a date circled on the calendar. I need something out in the future that I know, okay, weeks from now, I'm going to have this goal done. I'm going to have that goal done. That does a couple of things. It holds me accountable. It keeps me on track. It can help me make a diligent plan to accomplish my goal. For this question in question 3, it's just holding you to the fire a little bit and getting you to think, what's your deadline? What's your date that you want to have your goal done? All right, we've reached the end of this episode of the Work with Purpose podcast. But before we go, I want to say a big thank you to you as our listener for engaging with us and sticking with us, learning about work values and taking some steps on your career journey to work with purpose. I hope you found this episode helpful and engaging, and that it equipped you positively in some way. You can look for our next episode coming out in February of 2021, and I hope that you take some time to work on the application questions in between now and then. But until next time, I'm Randy Mahoney Jr. Thanks for listening, and remember, you are made with purpose, so work with purpose. We'll see you soon. Hey, thanks so much for checking out the Work with Purpose podcast here on YouTube. If you found this episode helpful, if it encouraged you, please click the like button, the subscribe button, and hit the bell icon here on YouTube so that you can stay in the know when we update new episodes and that you don't miss a thing. Also, be sure to check out our website at wwpcast.com. That's kind of our home base for everything. So until next time, I'm Randy Mahoney Jr. telling you to work with purpose.